Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Be sure to check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So, things are changing rather rapidly at Packernet, and I'm just trying to sift through it also very quickly before we jump into it. I just have to say, first of all, we do have a YouTube channel, which I told you about before. The initial purpose of that was just to host Coach Hahn's breakdowns. Since then, I made the decision he should probably get his own YouTube channel for whatever, a huge number of reasons. But we still have the Packernet channel. What are we going to do with it? Oh, I have a brilliant idea. I should spread myself even more thin and take that over and start making videos. So, for example, and this will be the first time ever, we are going to have the podcast here. We are going to have an article on Packernet that accompanies this podcast. There will also be a YouTube video that accompanies this podcast. Some of you might be watching this on YouTube trying to figure out what in the world is going on right now. We have a podcast for those of you on YouTube. So if you want to check it out on YouTube, I have yet to do it, but I have a picture in my mind of what it's going to look like. It's going to be all this, but much more visual. If you're like me, you like YouTube, you want visual stuff, so I'm going to have, we'll see how it goes, but there's going to be a visual of the draft board, of the draft pick, the draft order, and then we're going to have video streaming of the draft picks as they come live. You get to watch as I'm talking about it, get to see some highlights of the guy. I think it's going to look pretty cool, but we'll see how it goes. But anyways, today is going to be also a little different for the Packernet Podcast. We do have a bye week, so we have some time to kill, and since I am pretty heavy into the draft, I'm really big into it. I'm not only going to be doing just Packer drafts, rounds 1 through 7, but also just looking at first-round drafts for the entire NFL, and that's what today is. So if you're not a big draft person, if you really don't care, then you have wasted 2.5 seconds of your time. You can now click off and go listen to a different Packers podcast. If you are interested in the draft, which I think a lot of Packers fans are these days, with Brett Hundley playing like, we'll just say not so good. Based on what I've seen on Twitter and on Facebook, I'm starting to think maybe I'm not the only one who's really getting into the draft lately. So anyways, without wasting any more time, because I know YouTube folks are very visual and they don't want to waste any time listening to somebody ramble about nothing, we're going to jump immediately into this. To quickly preface though, our draft order is as though the season were to end today, brought to you by Tankathon. They have a website where they take, basically if the NFL season ended today, where would everybody be drafting? That's how we do our draft order. It helps because it saves me time, and it also, it's going to change every week, so it makes it more interesting when I do this every week. There's going to be different teams and different positions, different picks, whatever. Also, to save myself some time, I picked one website's big board. I don't have my own. It's way too early in the season to have developed my own, but I'll change that up every week too. But this week we went with Draft Tech. They have their own big board, so we just use theirs, and so away we go. First up, not surprisingly, Cleveland Browns. They are the first up every single year. Last week I didn't do a YouTube or a podcast, but I did have an article up. I had them taking Sam Darnold. If I were to follow the board exactly, they'd be taking it again, but I wanted to switch it up, so we went with the number 2 on our board, Mason Rudolph, quarterback out of Oklahoma State. Basically, it doesn't really matter. The Cleveland Browns have to pick a quarterback. That's all I mean, they have deficiencies everywhere, but they got to just keep swinging until they find one. Kaiser, I can't give him too much crap. I hated their draft. If you're a Browns fan and you're listening to this, your team is run by morons. I'm sure you know that. I'm in Cleveland right now, as a matter of fact. I'm so glad you guys have baseball and basketball to watch, because this team is run by complete idiots. I've already said I think it would be a pretty decent idea to just fire everybody, and the NFL just let the fans take over the Cleveland Browns, right? We can vote for who we want to be a coach. We can maybe even text in plays we want run. It's not going to be any worse. I mean, they can't win a game. They can't draft anybody. As far as Kaiser, though, I think they were smart. They didn't expend a first-round draft pick on a quarterback. They waited until this year. They got a guy like Myles Garrett. I think Njoku was stupid. Kaiser, they took a shot. that was a failure, whatever. It was a second round pick. But this year, they got to get it right. They have Mason Rudolph, they have Sam Darnold, they have Luke Falk. They have so many different quarterbacks to choose from. Tons and tons of guys that are first round, first overall pick worthy. The question is, which one are they going to pick? And it's pretty clear that whoever they're going to pick is going to be the wrong one because they just cannot ever get this right. But in this mock, which is technically 2.0, we got the Cleveland Browns taking quarterback Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State. So next up is the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are in a similar boat. They got some pieces they can pick, who knows, whatever. But when you're a quarterback deficient team and you have the highest person on your entire board in the first round is a quarterback, and you need a quarterback. Sam Darnold is there, we're taking him, quarterback out of USC. I don't know. I haven't looked too much into it myself to make up my own determinations, but I just feel like initially Sam Darnold is the big name, big stat guy that everybody loves. He comes out and he just can't quite perform. My comparison right now is like Blake Bortles. I can never remember his name. I think Blake Martinez all the time as a Packers fan. I referenced him last time and I cannot ever remember that idiot's name. Point is, that's sort of where I see Sam Darnold. I don't really know. But bottom line is, it's an easy pick for the 49ers. They have to pick a quarterback. I don't see any reason for them to be upset picking number 2 because you got like 3 or 4 that are worthy of the pick that they're in at number 2. So regardless of who the Browns pick, I'm sure there's one guy they really want, but whatever. They're going to be happy to pick number 2. They're going to take a quarterback. In this particular mock, they're taking Sam Darnold, and they're taking it straight to the bank. They love it. They're excited about it. The next pick up is the New York Giants at number 3. I was a little torn, and my initial thought is we got to go quarterback here. But based on our big board, if a quarterback does fall, you got to kind of question it. But we got Eli until like 2020. He's kind of the laughing stock once in a while, but you know what? The guy's won 2 Super Bowls for this team. We've got elite wide receivers who are banged up, but we know they're good. We got a defense that can't play, but we know they're really good. We know this team can be very, very good. If anything, we're looking to get new coaching next year. We got to get rid of the coaches we have because this team is way too talented to be playing the way it is. Next year, we have Brandon Marshall. We have Odell Beckham. We have this defense that is extremely scary. We have a quarterback that can get it done with the right pieces. So who do we add? It's actually not that hard to figure out. It's Saquon Barkley at running back. Think about it. Some of the best, maybe the best wide receiver trio in the NFL with a serviceable quarterback and a great defense. You add a running back, one of the best to enter the draft, one of the best to enter the NFL in a very, very long time. You look at what a guy like Ezekiel Elliott can do for Dallas. What does a guy like Saquon Barkley do for the Giants? Again, assuming we get new coaches and they can figure this thing out and actually get these players to perform at the level that they should be playing at, Saquon Barkley comes in and he turns his team from a no-win team into, well, the Eagles are pretty dominant right now, but they're neck and neck with the Eagles. They're right back in the fight. They're not bottom of the barrel. They're not a bottom of the barrel team. It's fun to laugh at them right now because they're playing so terribly. And Eli Manning is just, his face looks stupid, so it's fun to make fun of him. But, get some better coaches in there, draft Saquon Barkley, and this team is just out of control. So good. Great pick for the Giants. They're real excited about it. Coaches are not super excited because they are already fired. But the new coaches, they're going to love Saquon. Next up on the board, the Indianapolis Colts. This team is getting revamped from head to toe. The new ownership, they're coming in there and they're saying, this team is a mess. This team sucks. We got to rebuild it. So here's the deal. And I didn't mention this, and I'm not going to give it away, but there is a twist to this draft. The Colts wanted Saquon Barkley badly. They couldn't trade up because those quarterback deficient teams are not going to give up their spot and give up their quarterbacks. They couldn't jump up. They couldn't get Saquon. So now they're sitting here and they're saying, okay, we couldn't get our guy. What do we do? The phone starts blowing up. People want to trade up. This team needs to revamp this team. How do you do that? You do that with picks. So you know what? They pick up the phone, they make a trade. And in this case, they're trading with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers give up a third-round pick. They jump up 2 spots, and they grab maybe one of the best, if not the best players in this entire draft, depending on who you ask. Derwin James, safety, Florida State. He's staying at home. He's staying in Florida. The Buccaneers desperately need some safety help, and they're getting one of the best safeties to come out of the draft in a very long time. This guy is a big, physical, mean guy. He can play inside the box. He can play sideline to sideline. This guy can do absolutely everything. It is the perfect fit. It is exactly who they need, and they are not willing to sit around and wait for this guy to fall off the board and lose him. It's an easy decision to make. They're giving up a third round. They're moving up and getting their guy. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals weren't all that interested in James. They might have had to take him just because of the talent that was there. Possibly look to trade back considering how much value you can get for him. But with him off the board, they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what, we desperately need to get some offensive line help. It is so bad. So we're not following our big board to the letter, but we don't care. There's no way around it. We have to do something about this offensive line. You love to take the best player available, but it's just stupid at this point. Our offensive line cannot do anything right. We've got a quarterback we need to protect. We've got a new running back. We've got a very decent team, but you can't do anything without an offensive line. So, we're going to reach a little bit. We're getting Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Big bad boy. He's going to slide in. He's an instant starter at tackle. Whether or not he can play left tackle, right tackle, it doesn't matter because they need both. If the guy can play guard, we'll play him at guard. It doesn't matter. We don't have anybody that can play anywhere along this offensive line. We need help everywhere. Ideally, you play him at left tackle because that's a premium position, but if the guy just isn't cutting it there, fine. Put him at right tackle and let him just dominate on that side of the field. We'll use him there. It doesn't matter. We just need him, and we got him. Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle, going to the Bengals. So once again, now the Colts are up at number 6. Colts are sitting here. We've got a lot of options. We got a lot of needs. We got ourselves a new third-round pick. We're feeling real good. And man, that phone just keeps on ringing. And you're looking at your board, and you're like, we can't trade back again, can we? And the Jets call, and you pick up the phone, and you're like, well, what do you want, man? We just traded. What do you think, we're going to trade again? And they say, listen, I got something for you. We're going to give you a second-round pick. The Jets, moving up from 10 to 6, are offering a second-round pick. The Colts are thinking, we get to trade back twice. We get a third-round pick, a second-round pick, and we're still picking in the top 10. We got to do it. People are throwing stuff. They're throwing books. They're just furious. They don't want to give up their spot. GM makes a final call. He says, you know what, we're moving back. Jets slide up into number 6. Now, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. Nobody in the world ever gives up a second-round pick. It's stupid. It's suicide. But you know what? The Jets are doing it. You know why? Well, partially because they're stupid, but mostly because they got a quarterback that they love in Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA. They love the guy. They need a quarterback. They're one of those teams. Now, they're one of those teams like the Browns where quarterbacks go to die, but from the Jets' standpoint, who cares? Who cares how many times you've missed? It doesn't matter. You don't quit. You got to find a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback. I don't care how decent the guy is playing under center right now. So what if he's better than you would have expected? That doesn't matter. You need to have... this isn't a game of whether we can get to 8-8. This is serious. Do you actually want to win a Super Bowl? Do you ever want to win your division? Are you ever going to step up and be something? If you are, it all starts with the quarterback, and if you get your guy, everything else is forgotten. It doesn't matter what you did in the past. You got to find your guy, and if you believe in him, you do what you got to do to get him. The Jets paid the king's ransom. They went out and got Josh Rosen. He's another one of those guys in the conversation for the best coming out in an extremely talented quarterback draft. If the Jets feel like he is the guy, if they feel like this guy's going to come in, he's going to turn this franchise around, we're going to add him to these pieces that we've got, which isn't much, but hey, we're winning games already. You add a quarterback to this mix, I'm just saying, that's how it starts. We're going to give up our pick, but we're going to move up, we're going to get our guy. Jets get Josh Rosen. Colts now have a third and a second round pick to play with. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals picking at 7. They got they have a lot of needs. Quarterback would not be the worst thing in the world, but at this point, a lot of the best quarterbacks are off the board, especially the board we're using. There's just really nobody left for quite a while. We could try to trade back and get him, but we have a ton of needs everywhere. So when you have a ton of needs everywhere, there's a couple things you can do. You could trade back and get a bunch more picks, or you take the best player available. And in this case, that's exactly what they're going to do when they pick Harold Landry, edge defender out of Boston College. Harold Landry is primarily going to be your 4-3 defensive end, but the guy's 6'3", 250. He's plenty athletic. Typically, guys this early in the draft have more than enough athletic tools to play defensive end or outside linebacker. Harold Landry certainly fits into that mold. He's going to slide in here. He's going to play opposite Chandler Jones. And although they still have a ton of needs, they got AP. They still have a quarterback. Next year they're going to have their primary running back back. They still have the pieces. They're getting old. They're expiring rapidly. But a second top-end pass rusher is going to help this team get to whatever its full potential is. I don't exactly know what that is. I don't know even how long guys like Larry Fitzgerald and Carson Palmer are going to be around. But if you're going to take a shot, you got to get one of these primary positions sealed up. Go out and get you a pass rusher. Who knows? Maybe your defense plays out of its mind. Carson Palmer puts up one more good year. Larry Fitzgerald comes back for another one. You got some good running backs playing. Maybe we could scratch out one Super Bowl before this thing falls apart. I don't know exactly what's going to happen for the Cardinals. You're going to have to get you a new quarterback one of these days. Maybe we'll figure that out in the second round or later. But for right now, top of the board, Harold Landry is our edge defender. He's a top guy on our board. We're going to take him, and we're just going to see what happens. It's the best thing you can do. I don't know what you do in that situation. The wheels are about to fall off. You just try to keep your head above water, I guess. Next up, picking at number 8 is the Baltimore Ravens. Without further ado, the Baltimore Ravens are going to go ahead and pick Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back out of Alabama. Now, I call him a defensive back because the guy can play anywhere. He can play slot, he can play outside, he can play safety. He's an extremely versatile guy. For the Ravens' purposes, I have them taking him at safety. They've got two safeties that are kind of big-name guys that traditionally are really good football players. I don't know what's going on over there. I haven't been watching very closely, but terrible, terrible safety play this year. So grabbing a safety probably isn't the worst idea in the world. Even if these guys come back in 2018, they're ready to play, they don't want him at safety, they can slide him into corner just as easily. He can fill in wherever the Ravens need him. He's that versatile kind of a player. You're going to need a defensive back somewhere at some time. He's going to beat out somebody for that job because he's just an extremely, extremely talented football player. So you can't lose with a pick like Minkah Fitzpatrick. The Baltimore Ravens make a great pick. They're going to love the guy. Congrats, Baltimore Ravens. Next up at number 9 is the Oakland Raiders. Now these guys, I tell you what, for a brief moment we actually thought this was the next big team, right? They're going to come out, they're going to win a Super Bowl, but something is going wrong. And what's going wrong primarily is that this quarterback, who is a stud, keeps getting beat up. All right, maybe that's not primarily. It could be the defense, could be a lot of things. But bottom line, listen, we got to get a run game going. We got to protect our quarterback. We got to get the pass game going. All this stuff points to one thing. What is it? You got to fix your offensive line. So at number 9, we're going to pick Martinez Rankin, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Because the bottom line is, if you lose this guy, he's already been knocked out twice. He's a young quarterback, and he's getting hurt. We got to keep him upright. We got to keep him protected. You get an offensive lineman. You keep your quarterback on his feet. He's able to complete throws to these phenomenal wide receivers they have. You increase the value of your run game. These guys can run a little better. It takes more pressure off your quarterback. It improves your passing game even more. I know the defense is in trouble, but the positions that are available right now are already doing okay. You could take a pass rusher, but you don't really need one. You don't want to draft a guy in the first round that's going to sit on the bench or be a rotational player. So we're going to look at filling in the foundations of our offense, and that includes our right tackle position, which is really, really struggling right now. Donald Penn is a very, very good football player, but we got to get another tackle in there to keep these guys safe, keep our quarterback upright. So Oakland Raiders, Martinez Rankin, offensive tackle, Mississippi State. At number 10, for the third time, the Indianapolis Colts are back, and this time they're sticking. Because this GM knows if he trades back one more time, somebody is literally going to get up and break his jaw. So he needs to just cool it, celebrate his 2 picks, and make a real good pick here to smooth everything over with the fans and with some of the position coaches that um, have watched some players that they love fall off the board. But I think they're going to be real happy with this. They lost Saquon Barkley. They really wanted him. They really need him. But guess who's sitting here at the top or near the top of our board? Running back Darius Geis out of LSU. The guy is an incredibly good running back. It's a decent year for running backs this year. So even though he's not the top back on the board, Darius Geis still a great top 10 pick, a great running back. He's going to come in. He's going to fill in for Frank Gore, who's getting old, getting beat up, getting bruised up. They have a lot more positions that they need to fix, but with Andrew Luck coming back, he's going to be healthy. You still got T.Y. You get a solid running back in there, and now you bring more balance. You slow things down a little bit. You don't have to, chuck it down to T.Y. and get a touchdown right away. Let's just slow this thing down a little bit. Let's hand it off. Let's throw it to our running back. Let's get 3, 4, 5 yards instead of 50 yards. Let's just calm it down. We're going to take some pressure off because our quarterback is also getting beat up constantly. So what are we going to do? Well, we could get offensive linemen. That'd be nice. But with a running back, at least, you can't have guys just going to get you all the time, right? these pass rushers are like, just go get Luck. They can't run the ball. Now we can run the ball. Now you have to be afraid of our run threat. You can't just come get Luck all the time. So we're going to slow down our drive. Our defense, which is terrible, is going to sit over there. They're going to relax. They're not going to play 36 minutes in a game. They're going to come out healthy, fresh, relaxed, dominant, and they're going to play better. So our passing game again improves. Our run game is much better than it's ever been, and our defense improves because we're able to have long, slow, sustained drives. It's a good piece. It's a good pick. We've also picked up a second and a third, which is going to help us shore up some of these other issues that we've got. This team is going to come back in 2018. They're going to be completely different. Ain't nobody going to be laughing at the Colts in 2018. They're going to come back and they're going to dominate. Next up, at number 11, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. These guys, from a draft perspective, they're just kicking themselves right in the head over and over again. They're winning games. They're all excited about it, and I guess for good reason. It's not like they're going to win a Super Bowl, but who knows? Maybe they'll sneak into the playoffs. We'll see what happens. But from a draft perspective, they have fallen. I had them taking Derwin James last week, but it's still a very, very good pick this week. Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle out of Clemson. He's at the top of our board. He's going to help come in as an interior defender. They've got Corey Liggett, I think is how I don't know how you say his name. It doesn't matter. Outside of him, though, there isn't a ton to love. They got some serviceable players, but Christian Wilkins is the top defensive lineman in this year's draft. Very, very talented young man. Going to be able to come in and shore up some of that run defense. You've already got Ingram and Bosa. You've got Liggett, I think is how we're going to say his name. You add Christian Wilkins into the mix, big-bodied guy, and you've got an unbelievable front seven. You're probably going to want to pick up some linebackers at some point, but you've got Casey Hayward and Trevor Williams at corner. I mean, this defense has really, really got some elite pieces. You add him into the mix, you've got a great front seven. You got some great corners. Safeties are, they're all right. But bottom line, this defense in that division is going to be pretty lights out. So the Chargers, very happy with their pick, Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, Clemson. Next up, Chicago Bears. As a Packer fan, I was toying with the idea of letting them pick somebody terrible, but honestly, this is way too easy of a pick. It makes me sick to have to give them this player. But at number 12, the Chicago Bears are going to pick Arden Key, edge defender out of LSU. I think Key is probably the best edge guy in the NFL. He can play down, he can play outside linebacker. I would like it if the Packers could find a way to get him. We'll see how far we fall. But in this case, Arden Key's the top of the board. Bears, they do have an underrated defense, but they do need to get better as a pass rushing team. They don't have very much. They got their quarterback. definitely need to get some wide receivers at some point, or some kind of receiver. Give him a tight end or something. I don't know what you're going to do, but that guy needs some help. But decent offensive line, decent defense, but you add a elite pass rusher, um, a Myles Garrett type player to this Bears defense, and things are looking up. I mean, are they going to beat the Packers? No, probably not. Are they going to beat the Vikings? Probably not. Lions? No, they're probably not going to beat them either. But you're starting to build. And when you start with, we'll see what happens with Mitch Trubisky, but you got your quarterback. Then you got to get your pass rusher, right? Look at Oakland. They went out and got their quarterback. They got their pass rusher. Then they get their wide receiver. You know, next thing you know, you got yourself a pretty good football team. So, Chicago Bears, they definitely get their pass rusher in Arden Key out of LSU. Next up, we got the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys defense is really, really taking a step back this past year. They can't seem to stop anybody. So it seems like a weird pick, but in a way it makes sense. We're going to go with Micah Kiser, inside linebacker out of Virginia. We're playing by our board. We really like the guy. We think he's extremely talented. And we need to get some help stopping the run. Jalen Smith, we just drafted him. We really, really like him. We think he's some elite linebacker. I didn't personally understand why everybody loved him so much, but everybody seemed to love him. We think he's going to really turn a corner. Maybe 2018 is his year, but we still are going to need another one. If we can get Jalen Smith and Micah Kiser to step up as linebackers, this defense is going to look entirely different in 2018. Couple that with our young guys, Dak and Zeke and the whole thing that they got going on over there, and Dallas Cowboys are right back in the fight. That's not to say they're entirely out of the fight, but let's face it, 2017 looks nothing like 2016 looked. Something's not quite right with that team. They need to do something about their defense. So they're going to go out, they're going to get Micah Kiser out of Virginia. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos, boy oh boy, are they just in absolute free fall mode right now. I don't know what is going on. I thought that this was maybe one of the best teams in the NFL. When I started off, I was doing picks, and I was picking against them, and they just kept winning and winning and winning. I finally decided, you know what, I got to start picking the Broncos. They're really good. I think that worked once, and ever since, after that one win, they've been losing just constantly. And now they just got blown out, or shut out, I should say, by the Chargers. Not necessarily blown out, but they got shut out. This offense cannot do anything. Last week I had them taking a running back. Felt a little weird about it, but, if you can get a good enough running back, I think it's worth it. Quarterback, not very good, but I mean, man, oh man, you've got like 3 guys that have been with the team for like 3 years or less. So how many swings are we going to take at quarterback here? I just don't know. However, another option, and it seems a little silly, another option, James Washington, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. You've got some decent wide receiver options, but both of them are getting old. Emmanuel, I think, is 30, and Demarius, I think, is 29. So you got basically 2 guys in their 30s. I think both of them are maybe through like 2019 or something like that, so their contracts are kind of coming up. So first of all, you need a third wide receiver. Second of all, you got to look to the future. If we're going to take this thing seriously, we got young quarterbacks, we got a decent young team. I know you got a good defense and you want to capitalize and go back and get another Super Bowl, but you can't spread yourself too thin trying to just draft for need and try to go out and win a Super Bowl tomorrow. We got to play it smart. Wide receiver, we need help. We need to get younger. We need to get more talent. We got to play this big board, not necessarily to the letter, but we got to honor it to some degree. We're going to go out and get James Washington, wide receiver, Oklahoma State. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns, who are drafting once again. They pretty much draft once every other. Once again, they have 1,000,001 needs, so they could pretty much draft anywhere along their board and get an upgrade. However, once again, that phone starts ringing, and they're thinking, man, we need 1,000,000 guys, but, we might need to pick up a few draft picks here. So they pick up the phone. It's the Atlanta Falcons. They want to move up. They got a guy that's just fallen entirely too far. The Falcons have they got a pretty good, well-rounded team. I don't know what's going on with them. They're playing terrible right now. I don't know what's going on, but they're way better than they're playing right now. Bottom line, though, one of the needs that they have, I don't even know if I can call it a need, but let's just say what do we know about the Falcons? They like to draft for need, right? So if they have a great team except that one spot, they're just going to fill that spot. So there is an elite guy out there at wide receiver by the name of Christian Kirk. This guy is he's sort of like a Golden Tate, Tavon Austin, those kind of slot guys that are real slippery. You can put them on kick return, punt return. You can do some crazy stuff out of the backfield. Christian Kirk as a slot receiver paired with Julio Jones. You just think about it and you just shudder thinking about playing this off. This is maybe one of the best offenses I've ever seen. I don't know what's going on lately. It's insane. But they still have all those pieces. To be the best offense in the NFL, now they go out and get one of the scariest wide receivers to come out in a very long time. I mean, in terms of what he can do once the ball's in his hand, extremely scary. Very slippery type guy. You add him to this offense, to a team that already has a defense that's ascending. And man, oh man, I'm telling you, the Falcons see it. They're licking their chops. They paid a king's ransom. They went out. They gave the Browns a 4th and a 5th round pick to be able to move up and get him. But they're extremely excited. They're mad that they fell as far as they did. They need to get back on top. So they're going to come out and they're just going to build this super offense, even more super than what they had in 2016. This is going to be an offense for the ages, and they're just going to dominate everybody in their path with the addition of Christian Kirk to this football team. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions need a few things. They could go a few different directions. But near the top of the board, we got a guy by the name of Jaire Alexander. I've been calling him Jair, but I listened to or watched a couple of some film on the guy, and they kept calling him Jair. So we're going to call him Jaire Alexander, cornerback out of Louisville. They already went out and got Teez Tabor in the 2nd round last year. I really like Teez. I was kind of hoping he would do better this year so I could brag about it and tell everyone how smart I am. He hasn't even found his way on the field, and considering how poor some of the cornerback play has been on this team, it doesn't really speak well for Teez. Maybe he steps up, but even if he does, they're going to need a couple guys at cornerback. Jaire Alexander, arguably the best corner in this draft at pick 16. Not the worst way you can go. We're going to shore up this defense in a league with, Aaron Rodgers and a division with Aaron Rodgers. You got Stephon Diggs now to worry about. We got a new quarterback over there in Chicago. You can't have bad corners in this division. Packers do, but Packers don't have to face Aaron Rodgers, so I guess they can work that out a little bit. But from the Detroit Lions standpoint, you got to get some better corners. Jair makes a lot of sense. Jair. At pick 17 now, we got the Cleveland Browns are back. They grabbed 2 more picks. They've already got their 1st round pick. They get to pick at 17. They got a 4th and a 5th. I mean, this team is just. I tell you what, and I've said this before, if by 2020 this team doesn't have a Super Bowl, just call it. Just scrap it, and we're going to do the fan idea. We're going to do that thing where we just get rid of everybody, and the fans are going to vote. We're going to vote in coaches. We're going to vote in draft picks. We're going to vote in plays. We're just going to do this thing robotic style. We're going to do it Survivor style. And we're going to watch how much better this team gets. But anyways, at pick 17, the Cleveland Browns, who already have a decent offensive line, but need maybe one more piece, are going to go out and get Trey Adams, offensive tackle out of Washington. They have some decent running backs. I don't know what's going on with Crowell. I thought he was pretty dominant, but he hasn't been very good. They got their 3rd down back in Duke Johnson. He's a guy that I really liked, him and Amir Abdullah. I really liked his 3rd down backs back in the day. I thought maybe the Packers could get him, pair him up with Eddie Lacy. That didn't happen. Whatever. Either way, they've got some guys back there. They now have their new quarterback. We got to protect our quarterback. We've got a really good offensive line now with Trey Adams sliding in at right tackle. Adams is 6'7". He's an absolute freak. He's an absolute monster of a human being. We got Myles Garrett. He's our pass rusher. Get a few wide receivers, get a few more pieces. We got 7,000 picks coming up. We've got to be able to do something this year. I mean, it's already embarrassing that they had, 12 picks and they can't even win a game this year. Really embarrassing. If you get your quarterback of the future and you get an offensive tackle to protect him, you still got Myles Garrett. You got however many picks you got coming up that are pieces to add to this pie. I don't know why I went with pie, but I didn't have breakfast yet. We got pieces to add to the puzzle. If you flipping people can't go 8-8 next year, I'm done with you. Anyways, next up at pick 18 we have the Washington Redskins. Um, I'll just skip all the formalities. We're gonna go ahead and pick up Derek Nadi, Nnadi. I don't know how you say his name. Nadi, defensive tackle out of Florida State. The Washington Redskins they're not that bad. I feel like you never hear about them. Nobody talks about them. Nobody really cares. Everybody talks about the Giants, and the Giants are horrible, and you still hear a lot more about the Giants than you hear about the Redskins. I don't know. I don't know if Redskins fans realize it. If they live in the state, that's all they hear about are the Redskins. Nobody knows about you. We don't even know you exist. But their defense isn't that bad. What they do need, though, they need another defensive lineman. Specifically, Terrell McClain he's terrible. He's always been kind of terrible. We need to upgrade that defensive line a little bit. So even though, the Eagles don't really have a running back, the Giants don't have a running back. Well, now they do. We still got to get a better defensive line out there. So Derek Nandi, defensive tackle out of Florida State, he's going to help us shore up that defensive line. He's going to help our defense. Hopefully we can get our quarterback a couple wide receiver pieces, get this thing moving a little bit because Redskins are just kind of floating out there. I don't know what they're doing. They're just content to be mediocre, it seems like. No more, folks. Derek Nadi, defensive tackle, Florida State. At pick 19, the Tennessee Titans select Tavares McFadden, cornerback out of Florida State. Now, there are some pieces that are sitting out there. We got quarterbacks, we got edge rushers, we got all kinds of stuff that the Titans could pick up, but they're kind of okay in those positions. Their phone's ringing off the hook. We got people just chomping at the bit to move up and get these guys. They're terrified they're going to lose their guy, but you know what? Tennessee feels good. They got a guy in Tavares McFadden here, cornerback out of Florida State, arguably the best corner in the draft. He's number 2 on our big board. The Tennessee Titans need a cornerback. It just fits. It makes sense. So they pick up the phone, they listen to some of the offers, they kind of shrug their shoulders and go, hang up the phone, turn in the ticket, Tavares McFadden, cornerback, Florida State. So next up we got the Carolina Panthers at 20. Carolina Panthers have some options as well, but man, oh man, are those phones really starting to pick up. The trade offers are getting sweeter and sweeter. So you know what? They're going to make a deal with the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to move up. They're going to give them a third-round pick. For what? What do you give up a third-round pick and move up in the first round for? Easy. A quarterback. Luke Falk, quarterback out of Washington State. Now, obviously, after they make this pick, they're going to be talking about, we saw what happened when Tannehill went out. We just need to fortify that position a little bit. Tannehill's still our guy. He's always going to be our guy. We love Tannehill. Baloney. You don't move up in the first unless you're looking to replace the guy. Tannehill's not going to get you anywhere. He's not horrible. He's decent. He's fine. Whatever. But he's never going to be a Super Bowl quarterback. It's time to move on. We got some pieces at wide receiver. We've got some great pieces on defense. We've got a great running back. Everything seems to be in place to at least be better than we are, especially in this garbage division that we're in, where only the Patriots can play football, and even the Patriots are failing miserably all over the place, and stupid Jets and everybody else can't beat them even when they're down. But anyways, we're moving on. We're done with Tannehill. Luke Falk is our future. We're going to lie to the media. We're going to lie to Tannehill. We're going to play Tannehill early. We're going to kind of get Falk moving, kind of like what happened with over in Chicago. This whole pretending that we care about other people when we know full well who the future is. Luke Falk's going to be our guy, and before the season's out, he will be taking over the reins. Next up at pick 21, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now again, phones are still ringing. Jaguars got a few pieces that they could use. But you know what? They got a pretty good offer from the Rams. They're going to take it. The Rams are going to offer the Jaguars a third-round pick. They're going to move up and draft Marquise Haynes, edge rusher out of Ole Miss. Now, he's kind of a unique guy. He's probably only going to fit in a 3-4 system. He's like 222 pounds or something ridiculous. I mean, he's like a wide receiver. But he's a pass rush specialist. The Rams are a 3-4 team. They've got Connor Barwin. They've got Glover Quinn. They're big-name guys that you would think, oh, man, they're scary. These guys have not been very good at football in a long time. They do not have a pass rush presence on this team. They need to go get a pass rusher. This guy's sitting here. They're getting a little scared with the Packers coming up, thinking, that's a 3-4 team. They could use some help at outside linebacker. I don't know. We better pull the trigger. Fortunately for them, Jacksonville was willing to make the pick, so they went out and got Marquise Haynes. This guy's going to go get him some quarterback sacks for the team. Next up, it is your Green Bay Packers at 22. So, the Packers are going to select Sam Hubbard, edge rusher out of Ohio State. Now, Sam Hubbard is more of a 4-3 down guy, but he could easily, I mean, he's basically Nick Perry in terms of his size. He could easily be an outside linebacker for the team. Malik Jefferson, linebacker, inside linebacker, is very tempting for me personally, but let's face it, Ted Thompson is never going to take an inside linebacker in the first round. He just refuses to. We've had a much more dire needed inside linebacker. We've had very talented linebackers sitting right there. Fans are screaming, draft him, and they wait until the fourth round to get Jake Ryan. Do it again next year, get Blake Martinez, and, well, at least in terms of Blake Martinez, it seems to be working out. But one more interesting thing, and I threw it out on Twitter, and, you know, it's probably just a harebrained idea, but just listen for a second. We've talked a little bit about this with the Packers slowly shifting to more 4-3 type things. It happened first when they started bringing on players that were a lot bigger, right? We're getting away from the 240-pound, 250-pound outside linebacker types. We're getting to more of the 260, upper 260 type outside linebacker guys, right? Bigger, stronger, Nick Perry, Chris Odom, Ahmad Brooks, right? These big, bulky type guys that can play as down defensive ends. So now we're starting to see the Packers, and I brought it up then, and all of a sudden the Packers are playing some 4-3. It's kind of weird, right? We're drifting Clay back to outside linebacker. What's going on? It's a little strange. Then somebody mentioned on, I don't know what it was, Twitter or wrote an article, I don't know, but one of the complications with getting rid of Dom Capers is that a lot of the defensive coordinators are going to come in are going to want to switch to a 4-3 team. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So I real quick went and looked at Clay Matthews' contract. He is signed through 2018, but he has an out, which means the Packers can dump him after this year if they so choose. So hear me out. Let's just say, hypothetically, the Packers do fire Dom Capers after this year. I know as fans we think it's just never going to happen. We're always going to be stuck with Dom Capers. What if they fire him and then they say, Clay is a Dom Capers guy. He was brought in to help Dom Capers with this 3-4 system. He's perfect for the system. But as a 4-3 team, I'm not so sure. Now, Clay has put up some great numbers. He has a terrible injury history. He hasn't been playing very good, but this year he's playing out of his mind. He's great against the run. He's great against the pass. He's playing really, really well. As a trade piece for a guy that we can no longer really use, I mean, we can maybe slide him back to outside linebacker, but he's not very good back there. Now, I shouldn't say he's not very good, but that's not what he's going to be most valuable at. There's much more value in trading him. So we get rid of Dom, we trade away Clay, we bring in Sam Hubbard. Now we've got Nick Perry, who we just signed a big contract for. He's built just like a defensive end. He'll be fine there. Sam Hubbard comes in. He is a defensive end for Ohio State. We pick up, I don't know what, maybe we trade for a player, probably trade for some picks, or a pretty high pick for Clay Matthews. I'm just saying. It's a conspiracy theory because it's overly specific and very unlikely. But just think about it. Clay's getting toward the end of his contract. Dom has got to be getting to the end of his rope. Just something to think about. So, for a lot of reasons, Sam Hubbard, edge defender, Ohio State, is a pretty good fit for the Packers. At 23, we got the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks do pull the trigger on Malik Jefferson, inside linebacker out of Texas. Malik, at one point, they were talking about him as though he's like a top 10 pick. I'm not exactly sure why so many people have him slipping down the board. Maybe he's not having a good year this year. But athletically, there's no question the guy is really incredible. He's got some great speed. He's extremely powerful. I mean, he gets his hands on you and you're done for. It's not the best pick in the world. Seattle ideally is going to trade back. They're going to look to try to get some help on offense. Unfortunately for them, I couldn't find them a trade partner, so they're stuck. There's the option to just completely reach and go get a guy like Quentin Nelson, but we're not going to do it. We're going to play it close to our board. We're just going to take the top guy here, and we do need help. We got Wagner, but outside of Wagner, nobody really to write home about. So we're going to keep this Legion of Boom thing going. We're going to bring in a absolute thumper, an absolute monster. along the inside linebacker group to go along with Wagner, to go along with the rest of these pieces that we have. And we're going to continue to ride out this dominant defense thing, and hopefully it's going to work out in the future, as it has in the past. Am I right? Next up, Buffalo Bills at 24. Now, they could have used Malik Jefferson. Definitely. They could use that. As good as their defense is, they could use some linebacker help, some run defense help. But more than that, they need to get a wide receiver on this team. They have an underrated quarterback. They have a decent offensive line. They have a pretty decent defense. They're playing some good football. They just can't get this thing going. They had Sammy Watkins, but the guy was always hurt. They went and got Zay Jones. He hasn't really shown up very much. We got to figure this thing out. We're never going to win this division. We're never going to be anything in the NFL unless we can get some decent wide receivers. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama, is going to be that guy for us. Hopefully we get a bump from Zay Jones in year 2, and we got some decent wide receivers on this team and can make a run, but we can't count on that. We need Calvin Ridley. We need him now. We're going to go get him. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver, Alabama. With the 25th pick, Carolina is going to take Bradley Chubb, edge rusher out of NC State. Now, I doubt he's going to fall to 25. I'm using this board, but similar to Arden Key, I think Arden Key is a top 5 pick. Bradley Chubb, I don't know if he gets out of the top 10, much less the top 15. But we're sticking to our board. I think this is a great pick for the Carolina Panthers. Everyone's kind of scared of their defense, but along the edge, outside of 9,000-year-old Julius Peppers, they don't have much. Nick Chubb is the other guy, the running back. Bradley Chubb is an absolute freak of an edge rusher, very strong, very powerful, very quick. He could do a little bit of everything, so he's going to be a great addition to this Carolina Panthers defense. They will not regret it in any way. The Saints, the team that just cleaned their clock last week, they're picking at number 26. Now this team, if you look at their defense, it's really incredible how much they've turned it around. The defensive front is really good. These corners, they've hit on a couple corners in the last couple years in the draft, and they've really, maybe the best duo in the NFL right now. I'm not entirely sure. I know the Broncos have a real good duo, but it could be. Marshawn Lattimore is an absolute freak this year. But they do need safety help. They could go offense and try to keep that machine going. Hopefully they can keep the machine going one more year, because we're going to add one more piece to this defense here. Ronnie Harrison, safety out of Alabama. We do need some more safety help over the top. He's going to help shore up that defensive back group, which is already playing phenomenal football. Hopefully we can bring Drew Brees back. We'll see what happens. Obviously we want to bring him back, but he is so expensive. We weren't able to get a quarterback here. It would have been a great option, you got to draft a quarterback at some point. You're not going to replace him until he's gone, but man, oh man, what are you going to do? You don't have any cap room anymore because he's already eaten it up. You're going to sign him again? For how long? I don't know. But you got to try to bring him back, because we got a defense that can actually play now, and for the first time ever. This Saints team has been the worst defense over the last, 10, 15 years? They're just horrible. They've always been horrible. Drew Brees has never, Packer fans, we know how that is. This great quarterback and this really good offense just can't go anywhere because of the defense, and theirs has been worse than ours. So now they finally got a good defense, and Drew Brees is on the way out. They got to bring him back. Ronnie Harrison's going to help make that defense even better. The Saints got a shot if they can bring Drew back. They really have a shot. They have a shot this year. We'll see what happens. But next year, we're going to add a few more pieces. We're going to get this defense really clicking. Hopefully try to keep the offense going. Restock with some help. Kamara's doing all right. Maybe a running back, some wide receivers, offensive, whatever. Just get whatever we can to fill that in. But we just got to stay afloat and fight this thing out as long as we got Drew Brees. The Jacksonville Jaguars are picking at 27, and they are pretty furious at losing their quarterback. They're smoking mad. They wanted Luke Falk real bad. They didn't get him. So they're absolutely going to reach. They're going to go get Quentin Nelson, guard out of Notre Dame. They don't care. They went out and paid big money for this defense that they got. It's an elite defense. They went out and got Leonard Fournette. He is a monster. They're stuck with Blake Bortles. They need to get an offensive line. That's it. Everything else is in place. We got a defense. We have our running back. We have some wide receivers. We sort of have a quarterback, I guess. We can maybe try to address that in round 2. I don't know. It doesn't matter. we need an offensive lineman. We're going to reach, we're going to stretch, we're going to do whatever we need to do to just put the pieces in place. Enough is enough. We're going to go win us a Super Bowl. So there you go. Quentin Nelson, guard, Notre Dame. Pittsburgh Steelers are up next at 28. They're going to go ahead and get Daron Payne, defensive tackle out of Alabama. A lot of Alabama here lately. Was that 3 in a row? I don't even know. But Daron Payne's going to play defensive tackle for them. They've got Stephon Tuitt. They've got Cameron Hayward. But Hayward's getting a little up there in age. Tuitt, I think, is hurt right now, but I don't think it's very bad. I think it's a bicep injury. I don't even know if he's going to be out at all. But bottom line is they need to get some more bodies in there. Daron Payne is going to be a great addition to this team. It's not a super flashy or sexy pick, but it's a smart pick for a team that's pretty well established. They've got some great pieces already. You just got to keep picking at the top of your board and keep this as a young, fresh, strong team. Daron Payne, a great addition, as well as a good fit. I think there was somebody else higher on the board, but we passed over on him because he doesn't quite fit the system we have. Daron Payne is a good fit for us. Next up at number 29, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are going to draft Ken Webster, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Maybe on the surface it doesn't seem like the best decision in the world. Their defense is pretty solid. Their offense is terrible. You should be drafting offense. But the fact of the matter is they have a cornerback in Trey Waynes that has been an absolute disappointment. They drafted him in the first round, I think, out of Kenosha. Him and Melvin Gordon, both out of Kenosha. But he hasn't been able to do very much, and Terrence Newman is going to be 40 next year. So they're on the brink of kind of losing this dominant defense that they have. Granted, a lot of their dominance has to do against the run, their front seven, but that's not going to do you any good if you don't have any corners and people can just pass on you all day. And if you have an offense that can't put up many points and you're going up against teams that can throw and can just dominate you through the air, you're not going to win any games. You got to keep this defense fully stocked. You got to keep guys that can shut down the pass. Again, NFC North, you got teams that can throw the ball. You got to have some corners in this division. So Minnesota Vikings draft Ken Webster, cornerback out of Ole Miss. The New England Patriots are going to be up next at 30. They're going to draft Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Maurice has been falling down the draft board entirely too long. The Patriots are a very good team. They're a very sound team. They're the kind of team that's going to look at it and they're just going to pick the top player on the board. They're not going to reach. They're not going to stretch. Hurst, I'm not sure how great of a value, he's a phenomenal value. I'm not sure how great of a fit he is for this team. The defensive tackles in New England are big 300-pound plus type guys. Hurst is like a 280-ish type guy. But as long as he can play in the system, right, it's all about function. If you can do the job, then you can play. So for our purposes, we have the New England Patriots draft board. According to their board, he's really, really high up. He's fallen way down the draft. He fell right into our laps. We're real excited to bring in this defensive tackle to help shore up this defense that's just been getting tore up in 2017. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills getting their second pick in this draft. They're going to be drafting Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State. It's actually a really tough call, and I could see a lot of Buffalo Bills fans kind of scratching their head at this one, but the value didn't really line up with where we're drafting at. The people on our board didn't really line up. So we could have doubled down, got another wide receiver, but we didn't really want to go overkill on that. So we just kind of went top of the board. And the fact of the matter is, although we have E.J. Gaines and Tre'Davious White, who have really been playing phenomenal football, we don't have anyone behind them. And when you come out in nickel and dime defense, you got to have more than two corners on your team. Beyond that, I think E.J. Gaines is hurt. So we need depth, we need talent, we need more bodies that can actually play football. It's not good enough to just say, hey, we have two really good guys, and that's it. That's just not good enough. So Buffalo Bills, they're going to go out, they're going to grab one of the top guys on the board. They're going to get Denzel Ward, cornerback, Ohio State. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have your Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles picking at number 32. Philadelphia Eagles, with the 32nd pick, are going to take Deon Cain, wide receiver out of Clemson. It was actually interesting because when I looked at Philadelphia Eagles and I used Pro Football Focus to kind of gauge some of this stuff, they have a ton of holes everywhere. I don't know how they're winning so much. I don't know if it's just great coaching or just maybe they have a quarterback that's so good he's covering everything up. I mean, obviously he's playing out of his mind, but I mean, they don't have a great running back. They don't have a phenomenal defense. They don't have anybody at wide receiver, hence the pick. But man, oh man, I tell you what though, if you have a quarterback this good and you don't provide him some wide receiver talent, I know you have Ertz, I don't care. He's a tight end. Get him a wide receiver, for crying out loud. If you don't draft him a wide receiver, you guys are idiots. So for our purposes here, we are going to get Deon Cain, wide receiver out of Clemson. He is going to be the guy. He is going to be our outside guy to play, to complement Ertz in this passing attack. We're going to get Carson Wentz some actual weapons to play with. And we're going to go out and get Super Bowl number 2. 2 in a row for Carson Wentz and these Eagles, who have been suffering through years of being made fun of. Made fun of no longer, folks. But that's going to be it. That was a first ever. We haven't really done that before. Once again, this article will be up on Packernet.com. The podcast, it's on iTunes, Packernet. It's everywhere that you get, podcasts. And this will also be on YouTube. It'll be on the Packernet YouTube channel, so just search Packernet there. No idea when this is going to be up, when and where and how, but it'll be up eventually. So be sure to check it out. Find out what you like, what you don't like. Let me know. And we'll be doing this again next week. This is going to be a weekly deal. So get used to it. I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.